Hey guys, I'm following up to Module 2. So we had our discussion, which was how much protein is good for a bodybuilder, and then we also had our assignment when we are talking about weight gain and protein needs of a high school football player. So let's start with the discussion. What things was I looking for? I was looking for good research. So how much protein does an individual need? And your book does go into this, and Antonio has done a lot of research in this, so some of you have found some of his other articles. But bottom line, we know the RDA recommends 0.8. Actually, they recommend 0.75 grams per kilogram per weight. And where this comes from is actually when they look at the nitrogen balance, the zero balance of our body, it's usually 0.6 grams per kilogram per body weight. And you're like, well, if it's 0.6, why are they saying 0.8? Because with the RDA, they go about 25% higher than the average, and the RDA will cover 97.5% of the population. So that is the average, they bump it up. So 0.8 for the average person, and we've actually, some of the research has shown a little bit lower for sedentary people. So I was hoping that you'd find some studies, and many of you did, the studies that looked at anywhere from 2 to 3, and I think even Antonio did a study with 4.4, which some of you found, and they found no benefit to that. So that's where, you know, even though we're increasing our protein, is there any performance betterment, or is there any strength, you know, increase compared to other doses? And we really didn't see anything in the research, and we kind of floated right back down to that 2. There has been some studies up to 2.5. The next thing I asked you to look at was the health risk. And commonly the 2 health risks, some of you had pointed out both of them, some of you found one, not the other, but bone health and renal health. But both of these, and let's explain the bone health first, that if you increase your protein, the thought was, well, this extra calcium is going to come around, and is this coming out of the bones? But it's not. Actually, increased protein will actually help bone health. So that kind of got thrown out the window. The other one was renal, and what we did find in some of the research in there was looking at individuals with compromised renal problems, the filtration issues going on. If you have compromise in there, that too much protein can kind of back that up and cause some problems. So I wanted you to find that research. But in most people, in the normal population without renal compromise, excess of protein actually won't do any problems. So the other thing I asked you about was types of proteins. Now they're selling everything and anything. So we know proteins can come in different forms, the whey and the casein, and there's a big push on the whey because it's absorbed very quickly into the system, and we've seen a lot of benefit with that. And a lot of times people use this to actually increase muscle mass and decrease fat. But you have to be careful what you mix your whey protein with, because if you're trying to lose weight or increase your muscle mass and not your adipose tissue, mixing it with high-fat foods isn't really going to help you there too. But the whey protein, they do find better for body composition, referring to my notes. The other things that they have pointed out is with the hydrolysates. And these types in regards of proteins, so this is, it's been found to be more superior because it's hydrolyzed whey protein compared to the non-hydrolyzed. And they find that this is effective with a higher insulin response, leading to a higher glycogen replenishing versus the non-hydrolyzed. So it helps with a rapid absorption, hormonal control, rapid recovery. Hydrolyzed whey protein elicits more improvements in body compositions as a result of decreasing fat. So that was Lockwood in 2010. So finding that research. But bottom line, getting 2.5 grams of protein from your diet is actually very achievable. So you'd have to, and we're going to kind of look at this with our next situation. Our next situation was looking at our looking at our GJ situation. But before we go into that, protein in young adolescents. This kind of concerns me that with adolescents, they aren't just mini adults. Their bodies actually need more proteins than adults because they are growing and they need that. Body composition has been studied before, especially with athletes and with football. There's studies way back in the 80s that looked at body composition in football players, NFL players, and they found body compositions to be anywhere from 4% to 29%, depending on positions. And this kind of continued into the 80s and 2000, where they kind of realized that certain positions actually was more advantageous to have more adipose or less adipose tissue, whichever way you want to go with it. But looking at this stuff in regards to children doesn't always transfer over. So I want you to be very cautious with kids and all of that. There is research out there on weight and body composition, more so weight, not body composition. It was Gomez and colleagues in 98, so some time ago. They looked at BMI and body composition and injury rates, and they determined that the higher the BMI, the higher risk of injury rate that we have. So be careful there. So we don't want to be having our individual gain too much weight and actually compromise themselves. I know sometimes with football, we think bigger the better, and I see parents do this of, oh, isn't Johnny looking great? He's such a big kid, and I'm looking at him saying, no, he's overweight, he's over fat, and that's not good for him because it's more of the habits that they're creating. They're encouraging overeating and all of that. So we just got to be careful there. Kids, yes, they need a little bit more protein, but not excessive. And when we look at our situation, our case with GJ, who's our junior in high school, and he's already 175 pounds, and his coach wants him to gain more weight. And when we look at what he's eating, this is what I wanted to see. Did you notice that, in some, and they weren't the perfect, I didn't give you the perfect diet here to crunch the numbers, but you can kind of guesstimate. He was getting about 160 grams of protein through supplements, and he was getting anywhere from 100 to 160 grams of protein in his food. So he is getting close over 300 grams of protein per day. This is way beyond what we'd even recommend for an adult. Yes, we know they eat a little bit, they need a little bit more protein, but we don't have the ideal number for adolescents. And I know he's on that brink. He is 17 years old, but he's still, we know men grow until at least 24. So keeping that in mind, we would recommend him getting his protein from food. He can cut out his bars completely and still be in the normal recommendation. So if he cuts out his bars, I think he's closer to that 2 grams per kilogram per day is what he's intaking now with his regular food. You could probably improve the quality of the food, and he doesn't need to be taking in those protein bars. Now, if he wants to mess around with supplements, we're always going to refer out to a registered dietitian. So that's kind of the points, the highlights that I was looking for in your discussions. Some of you struggled with just painting one. I want you to look at both sides. Not that you have to agree. I don't agree with the health concerns because we saw the research didn't show it, but we need to bring it up. Why are we hearing these things? What's the other side of the coin? Because we have to look it up and kind of justify why aren't we going with the 4.4 grams of protein a day? There's no benefit, and we have to look at that. So that's your feedback, and I did give you guys some personalized information or personalized notes on each of your discussions and assignments. So they are coming along nicely. I love that you quote them, read each other's. I know Lindsay and Gina both did a great job this week. So take a look at their post.